She yanked me by the collar and whispered,
"If you tell your family about this, it's not only your job that's at stake here. I have other ways to mess up that pretty little face of yours. Get back to work, you useless pile of trash!"
she exclaimed, glowering at all the employees before returning.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Mad Viper here, and welcome back to Friday Frights, the show where we sit down, crack open a, I don't know how to say it, but y'all know what it is, eat a Pop-Tart, and watch some scary videos together. Now, before we start, I believe it's very clear, the people that watch me, that I took inspiration, and I'm a very huge fan of Corey X Kenshin. You don't believe me? Let me get this. Yeah. When this first came out, I bought it immediately. The one I have is number 148, so I was one of the first ones. And what makes this more rare than probably anybody else's is they have a typo mistake on the welcome part in the inside. I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me just, yeah. You see that for the exclamation parts, they put ones. So I guarantee you, this is one of the most rarest collectibles out there just for the box alone. But I love his Spooky Scary Sunday series. It's absolutely amazing. And that's where I took inspiration for my Friday Frights series. Of course, there's different days, because I don't want to be a copycat. I just want to take inspiration and put my own twist on what he's already created. So, from his Spooky Scary Sunday series, he watches quite a few of animated horror stories. And I decided I'd look it up on YouTube, and I found an abundance of animated horror stories that is going to be the theme of today's Friday Frights. So sit back, relax, and grab them snacks. Oh! I gotta watch me some Spooky Scary Sunday after this. And let's get on to the first video. Now this first one is called Scary Nurse Horror Stories. If you don't know, I don't like the hospital that much. I'll only go if I really need to go. And fun fact, I'm in a lot of pain right now. I'm not sure if I did, but I stubbed my toe really hard a couple days ago, and it's very sore. My Mama Viper said it's most likely a fracture. I feel that it's broken, but since I'm not in that much pain, I'm guessing it's not. But at the same time, I had to walk on a broken toe when I was younger for about a week or so. So I can't really tell what's going on with my body right now. But Editing Viper put the thumbnail up there. It looks creepy, so I'm just ready to get into it.
My name is John J. Gorderi.
Damn.
I'm 26 years. My name is John J. Gorderi.
My name is John J. Gorderi. Bro, I love that name.
I'm 26 years old, and I work at a previously local coffee shop. I say previously local because I don't think I'm anywhere close to that place. Let me start from the beginning. I was working as a cashier that day and taking orders when I saw a person across the street. I didn't think anything of it till hours later when we had little activity and I saw that they were still there. Out of curiosity, I asked the other cashier if he saw the person as well. As they turned up to look at them, they looked confused. Weren't they standing there like 3 hours ago? He asked. I replied with a shrug and told him that I was going to check on them.
Bro, why?
As I headed
Just
out
leave
the
him
door,
alone.
I turned around to see most of my coworkers
He got them
gathered behind
AirPods
the
in.
counter. I turned back and took a long look at them. They were wearing a black trench coat, a pair of dirty sneakers, and a baseball cap that looked like it had sat on his head his entire life.
You're listening to Playboy Cardi.
You've been standing there for hours now, I called out to him from across the street. He didn't move or show any signs of hearing me. Hesitantly, I walked across the street, and at
Why?
this moment I know why my parents told me to look both ways before crossing the street, because at that moment, I was
Damn!
He needs some milk!
You're dead.
I don't remember much of that, but what I do remember is that I didn't feel a thing, and the strange man lifted his head slightly, and I saw a ghostly white face and the
Oh my
smile
God.
of a man who has no sympathy left. I remember hearing the sounds of my coworkers gathering around me. One of them was calling the police, and for a short while I could open my eyes. I saw the blood starting to pool around me and people standing over me, but the thing I remembered the most clearly was the other cashier was looking around, and I didn't realize this till later, but he was looking for the guy, which implies he either ran or disappeared. I woke up later in a hospital room surrounded by all sorts of equipment and many tubes running from my body. I took a good long look at myself. My right arm and leg were both broken and strung up from the roof. I tried to move my
Damn.
head, but pain shot through my body like electricity. My neck was in a brace, but I could still barely move it, but it still hurt to move it, so I just moved my eyes and not my head.
Yeah,
I
it's
looked forward
broken.
and saw a few x-rays, but they were pictures of a leg, a neck, and I think the last one was an arm, but it looked like a glass table that had been in an earthquake. As an educated guess, I think they were my x-rays. My
Clearly,
leg
bro.
was broken right at the place where it meets the hip, and my neck wasn't broken, but from what I could tell, something wasn't right. I tried to call out for any nurses or a doctor, but I couldn't produce any sounds. It's a strange feeling when your brain tells you to do something, but you can't. It gives you this feeling of confusion and fear. After this whole ordeal
Calm
of not
down,
being able
buddy.
to yell, I remembered that hospitals have a button to call a nurse. I used my left hand to feel for it, and I didn't find one, but either way I heard the door to the right open. Something about the footsteps didn't sound right. They sounded uneven or out of time. I don't remember. Whoever they were walked over to my bed and started fiddling with the equipment next to me, and for some reason I didn't alert them I was awake, but as they were leaving, I must have pushed the button off the bed somehow, because next thing I know there's a clatter on the wall, and whoever was in my room shambled over to the wall, never looking at me, and picked up the button and set it back on my bed. They started to walk over to the door, but they stopped at the foot of the bed, and for some reason I closed my eyes like I was sleeping, but opened my left eye just enough to see out of it. The nurse turned
Hi, how are ya?
or at least
Oh.
turned her head to me because she had
Oh.
my face. Out of fear for what would happen to me if I did anything, I just sat in the bed and watched as she walked to the door and out into the hall. After a long time, I finally relaxed. Then I started
She
to
needs
realize
to explain
the true
herself.
scale of my danger, and I let out a silent scream. I will spare you the day-to-day, but after a week or so of the faceless nurses, I became desensitized to it, and I just waited for the nurses to leave my room. They removed my neck brace after a month or so, and I heard from just outside my door some muttering that didn't even sound like a language, but I could make out one word, miraculous, which was probably referring to my recovery. Not long after, they removed my neck brace, and they remove my leg cast. I think after a year in the hospital, I finally worked up the courage to yell out to
year?
the nurses, but no one came. Then I tried the button, but again, no luck. After that, I realized they don't come when called, they come when they want to. At that, I moved my right arm with my left, which hurt to high hell, but I had to. I threw my legs over the bed and pushed myself up, but instantly I fell to the ground, which I probably should have expected after sitting in a bed for a year and then some.
Your legs
I
broke.
pulled myself up with all my might and threw myself back into bed, and for the next 3 months or so, I threw myself out of bed trying to build my strength, and eventually I did. I taught myself how to walk again. Slowly,
Aren't
I
they
would make my
supposed to
way
do
to the
that?
door and then walk back. One day, I tried the doorknob, only to find that it was locked. Each day, I tried to open that damn door, but nothing would come of it. I eventually was able to run and walk like I was before the truck. I had the great idea one day to use the bed as a ram against the door. I grabbed the foot of the bed and pulled it forward. It slid with ease, and as I twisted, I started pushing it at the door with great speed.
You should
and within
probably turn
seconds,
the
I
bed
slammed
the other
into
way.
the head of the bed as it slammed into the door. I
Yeah,
pulled it
that's
back to
that's
the
not
wall
gonna do
again
nothing,
and
but you
tried
need to
again,
turn it the
but
other way.
Still nothing came of it. I tried for days, but then I had a great thought.
Why is you smiling
what if I push
about
the bed
this?
at the door when the nurse opens the door? And that's what I did. I waited. She didn't come for weeks, but when she opened that door, I was ready, and I pushed off the wall and slid at the door and slammed into the nurse.
Ready.
And just before I went through the door, I jumped off the bed and started running down the hall.
Bro.
As I ran, I heard a shrill shriek from behind me, and I turned to see what happened. Apparently, those things are incredibly fragile because when I looked at it, it was bleeding this purple liquid from where I had hit it with the bed. It collapsed to the ground with a dull thud. I continued to
Is it
run
dead?
without stopping, and as I ran through the halls, the nurses didn't try to touch me. They just kept moving on with their day. As I ran, the walls and rooms became more and more run down and decrepit. As I ran past these destroyed rooms, I saw those things forming from the walls, and these ones were aggressive, but at least for this part, they only came from the rooms. When I made it to the first floor, the hospital was practically collapsing. This floor, the nurses didn't only come from the rooms, they came from everywhere.
Did you
I
get
started
away?
running down the hallway, but as I did, so did the arms and tried to scratch and claw at me. Some of them even got me, but I was running so fast they couldn't get a good grip on me. I ran past the reception desk and through the doors, and when I made it outside, there was nothing. As far as I could tell, the hospital was the only thing that existed there. I didn't care though, because I just ran and ran and ran without stopping. I made it so far that I could just barely make out the outline of the hospital in the distance. I sat down in the empty field and eventually fell asleep or passed out. It was one of those two.
What?
I eventually woke up in the one place I didn't want to, the same hospital I first woke up in. Somehow I knew I wasn't home. I
Why
looked
would
around
you-
the room trying to get my vision to focus. As I was doing this, I noticed a person sitting in the chair next to my bed. I still couldn't see, but I could make out a baseball hat, a dirty black coat, and a pair of dirty sneakers.
Oh no,
I
it's the
slowly looked up at his
AirPods,
face,
man.
and I didn't need my vision to focus to know who was sitting next to me.
Body him. That's the end? Dang, that's booty. That's the end? It ends like that? Oh my god, man. That is some bull. That is straight up some bull. You literally had it. You had it, and all you had to do was run. You pass out? You were out, man. He was out. Nah. I didn't like that one. Next video. Alright, now this video is called 3 True Dairy Queen Horror Stories. Now this one is a very common one on the Spooky Scary Sunday channel called Horror Shorts Party. They got some good ones. You should definitely buy their merch, because if I had the money to, I would have bought their merch as well. But let's get on to it. I don't like Dairy Queen that much. Oh, ew, 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 ew. This is nasty. The following stories: Dairy Queen worker arrested for spitting on cop's burger. What happens next is heartbreaking.
This following story was inspired by a Baton Rouge male who worked at a Dairy Queen. I just want to give you a disclaimer that what you're about to witness might make you queasy the next time you order at a fast food restaurant.
Oh,
I
God.
personally find this story rather disgusting than scary. Here's what it looked like. I've been in and out of jail in the past, but hey, I never killed anybody, alright? I was arrested on account of theft and illegal substance imports and nothing more. Now that I was free again, I had found serenity at Dairy Queen, where my manager and colleagues were all nice to me. I felt that I could handle any situation no matter how stressful it was, with only one exception: no police officers. I'd survived my first 2 weeks on the job without any commotion, but one day it all went downhill when my
God.
worst nightmare entered through those heavenly doors. A stout man in a black long-sleeve uniform with a peak cap and a shiny badge. I knew it was too good to be true, because no matter how much I wanted Dairy Queen to be free of these vermin, police officers couldn't resist the mouth-watering treats Dairy Queen had to offer.
What is this? What is happening here? Why is he describing Dairy Queen like this? It's disturbing.
I
just
attempted
listening
to ask
this.
my colleagues to handle the customer, telling them that I was sufficiently under the weather. However, it was one of those busy days where everybody had something to do, and to make matters worse, we were understaffed. So I had no choice but to handle the task delegated to me.
It's not
Looking
that
down
hard.
At the
Just
counter,
ask
I felt
him
really
what he
uncomfortable
wants.
standing in front of the officer. I thought that perhaps there was a way for me to still get his order without making direct eye contact. But then, moments later, the cop called my name with a familiar tone that instantly sent chills down my spine. Well, look who we have here. It's my old buddy, Mr. Johnson. So, how's life out of prison? He asked aloud with a smug look on his face. I didn't appreciate what he was doing, letting my colleagues and other customers know about my past since it might scare them off or give Dairy Queen a bad image. With my mama's reminders running through my head, I took a deep breath, urging myself to remain calm. It's been swell, officer, I replied monotonously. Then, in a split second, memories of a past that I kept neatly tucked in the archives of my brain rushed back
What
to the
happened
surface.
to you in
I had
prison,
flashbacks
bro?
of Officer Ralph forcing me into a corner so that he could beat me up with his truncheon whenever he felt like it. One time, he and another officer took me to the restroom, where I nearly drowned after they dipped my head into a drum of water. But I had to put all those thoughts back where they belonged, in the past. After all, I didn't want to make a scene. Then, moments later, the irksome cop scanned my body from head to waist and said, "From what I recall, this type of job doesn't suit you at all." It was apparent that he was trying to provoke me, but all I said was, "May I take your order, sir?" He shook his head with a smirk and replied, "Sure, I'd like 1 burger, 50 Oreo Blizzard cakes, and 80 chocolate blizzards." "All right, that would be $2,355, sir," I replied, my body stiff from all the tension. "Well, maybe you can pay for me, Mr. Johnson," he said, placing his filthy hand on my shoulder. You know, for old time's sake. I wanted to justify my rights and the immorality of his ways, but he sensed that I wanted to retaliate. Officer Ralph tightened his grip, pulled me close to him, and whispered in my ear, saying, "Know your place, boy. I could always visit the manager's office and tell him all the terrible things you did that brought you to jail. I guess you never told him about it, right?" Clenching my fist to control my anger, I replied, "If that's all, I'll take your orders to the kitchen staff and get them ready." "That's more like it," Officer Ralph said, as he chortled delightfully. Going back to the kitchen, I handed over the orders of ice cream cakes to my colleagues. Then,
can I just say this? All the Blue Lives Matter and stuff and all that, not to get, politically and all that, I agree with the cops. We need cops. But it's cops like that bastard right there that give all cops a bad name. Alright? Like, he didn't need to do that. My man's is an ex-convict working at a Dairy Queen. He's clearly no threat to nobody. From his side, it looked like he was the one doing the harm to him in prison. Waterboarding him in a tin can, beating him in a corner. Like, why? And then you're trying to provoke him at his job. Catch him in the parking lot. Like, are you serious? Like,
and while
so
one of
messed
them was
up,
on
man.
break, I took his place at the hamburger making
So messed
station
up.
and began to cook. Recalling all the horrible things he did to me in prison, I knew of a way that could mitigate my growing
I'd
apprehension.
spit in that burger
I knew that there were
50,000
eyes on us
times
in the
if I
kitchen with
could.
multiple cameras at every corner. So, I had to be tremendously cautious. While the patty was being grilled, I took the bun, positioning myself off camera and spat on it, leaving behind a clear greenish blob of saliva. It gave me such relief that I chuckled at the thought of him eating that burger. Then, I went back to the grilling station, took the patty and placed it neatly inside the bun before wrapping it. When it was finally time to give this customer his food, he came to the counter, took one Oreo Blizzard cake and started mashing it with his bare hand, eating the sponge and licking off the ice cream from his fingers like a pig, displaying a pompous attitude. It feels so good having this much food for free, Mr. Johnson. I think I'm gonna drop by this place more often. He teased me, like the bully that he was. You're gonna regret this, I said, in a low tone. Did you just threaten an officer, Mr. Johnson? He said, his posture straight and his tone condescending. It was nothing. Forget about it. I recoiled, looking down at my hands on the counter. Then, as he returned to his seat with his burger and cakes, I watched him from my peripheral vision as he took a small bite out of the burger. As soon as I turned my back, I heard him scream. What the hell is that? What the hell did you put in my burger? He marched back to the counter, calling out my name, saying, Mr. Johnson, is this your saliva on my burger bun?
Sure is, my guy. Sure is.
Looked at him menacingly, and he immediately caught on. So he stepped back and spoke to someone on his radio, then asked me to come quietly to his car. All right, Mr. Johnson, you're under arrest.
I'm on shift. I'm on company time, guy. I can't go with you. I'm on company time. I'm on company time.
Hey, I know my rights, okay? Since you have no proof that my saliva is on your burger bun, I'm staying right here. I replied, confident that I could get away with it. However, 2 other officers came in and forced me into submission as I resisted as long as I could. When we arrived at the police station, they reviewed the surveillance footage and caught me spitting saliva on the bun. Just like that, I was behind bars once again for mingling harmful substances and resisting a cop. Hey, I'm just glad I wasn't charged with attempted murder and that officer isn't dead. You see, I later admitted to the law enforcement that I had several diseases, which would have made that night his last time at Dairy Queen.
Man. To make matters worse, Johnson also admitted to the officer that including what? Including what? Oh, why they gotta lick? Why they gotta lick? Can I just say this? Everybody in the world needs each other, okay? We're all going through stuff, all trying to just get by day to day. Why you gotta do that? He's an ex-con. He clearly has had a rough life. Why? Everybody needs each other. And you're going to taunt him at his job? I would have spit in his sandwich too.
I lived in a small rural
I ain't gonna deny it.
Of my life. It's the kind of area where everybody knows each other, despite there being miles between most neighbors. I also got a job at just about the only restaurant within a 30-mile radius of my house. The old-fashioned Dairy Queen at the intersection of the 2 country highways that went through town. The town was so small, in fact. If you needed anything else other than gas, mail, or fast food, you'd have to drive 45 minutes to the next sign of civilization.
DoorDash.
Since the town I lived in was so small, the business that the Dairy Queen received was minimal at best. It was usually only one person working on any given shift. The manager actually only had 2 other people on staff other than himself. Me for the morning shift and another guy for the evening shift. Yep. On average, during those days, I probably served about 3 customers per shift. The owner of the franchise knew all of this without a doubt. I always remember him as this depressed old husk of a businessman, with his life's work crumbling away before his eyes. He never tried to hide the fact that he wanted to sell the business, but for the longest time he couldn't find anyone who wanted to buy it, for obvious reasons. But that all changed very suddenly one day. The boss man came into work, and for the first time ever, there was a smile on his face. "I'm finally doing it, sport. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm selling this old hunk of junk and getting it off my hands." "Really? How? Who's the buyer?" "I don't really know, actually. I met him on Craigslist. He said he's a professional savior of failed businesses. Probably some kind of cartel money launderer. Says he'll only do cash, no questions asked. Watch your back around him, alright?" "Alright, man. I don't think anybody's gonna be able to save this place, though." "Well, you see, that's the beauty of the situation. That's not my problem anymore." "True. Good luck in your future endeavors, I guess." You too, sport. I'm just gonna clear out my office and the new guy will be in tomorrow. He said he's bringing his business partner, whoever that is. I couldn't care less. The wife and kids and I are moving to Florida and getting the hell out of this country hellhole. You should do the same. I know I always said you were my last hope for this place, but you're too young to be tied down to a place like this. Don't do what I did, kid. Those were the last words he ever said to me.
At
They
least he
rang
had
out
a
in my
nice
head.
boss.
I couldn't stop thinking about them for the rest of my shift, and even through the night. But I wanted to stay
Dang.
for a little longer.
Did you have a
If
thing for
nothing
your
else, than
boss?
to see what this new guy would be
I would be like,
and what his
"Thanks,
plans
man,"
were for
and kept it
revitalizing the
moving.
business. To say I was shocked when they arrived the following morning would be a gross understatement. For one thing, the
Oh
businessman's
my
partner
God.
was his son, and the
Oh
relation was
my
obvious
God.
because they both gave me chills every time I made eye
Oh
contact
my
with them.
god.
I know I'm a country bumpkin or whatever, but these guys were a whole different kind of isolated from society.
That's a
It was like
different
they were some
breed.
genetic cross between trailer trash and mountain man, and then inbred for 3 generations.
You'll
Damn.
be working up front with my son Blake. I'll take care of everything on the back end. You shouldn't have to do anything different.
That didn't make me feel any better about their business prospects. I couldn't imagine what one person could do to save a business without working their employees at least a little differently. But at least the new boss could speak.
Oh.
I couldn't say the same for his son Blake. In all the hours I worked with him, he never said a word. He must have been
Did he
legitimately
just have
mute.
that face?
He was able to do everything the job required except for the part where you have to speak to people. But he was never reprimanded for this, and I didn't want to accost a disabled person, so I just worked around it. However,
I mean,
very
yeah.
much despite all
Besides
these
his
strange
face,
aspects
he doesn't
of the
seem
new
that bad
management,
of a worker.
they were successful. Unreasonably successful. In a matter of weeks, the flow of business through the DQ went from its initial trickle to a slow and steady stream to an absolute madhouse every day. The weird thing about it was that nobody was ordering anything but blizzards. The number of blizzards I served in a day increased from 3 or 4 to 3 or 400, while the grill was never even turned on. Of course, I knew something had changed about the soft serve, and I had to know what. The first time I tried a blizzard from this new guy's recipe,
Oh,
I was
got
blown
cocaine
away.
in it.
Don't get me wrong, all blizzards are pretty good, but this stuff was like crack. It was sweet, savory, salty, and creamy in all the right proportions, like some master chef stuff. After that, I wasn't surprised when I saw the business continue to grow, with the lines forming around the building, even drawing in people from other nearby
What
towns.
is it with these
People I'd never seen in my
customers,
18
man?
years in the area.
I
But when I dared to ask what had changed, I was met with intense secrecy.
Why do you want to know, huh? So you can steal my secret formula, sell it to my competitors, use them against me in your little business attempt? Back off, Squirt. You're just a service associate. You don't need to know.
And if you ask me again, or if I catch you trying to find out, I'll turn you into a strawberry soft serve, you hear me? Okay, no problem, boss. I was confused after that.
Hey,
But
can I at least
instead
get
of
a pay
deterring,
raise?
His strange aggression only strengthened my curiosity. I
Don't
started to
ask
think
his
that he might have
son.
been adding some illicit addictive substance. My
Yes,
suspicions grew as
coke.
another couple weeks went by, and it seemed like literally everybody in the Tri-County area was habitually visiting the DQ every day. They shuffled along in line like zombies, and when they got to the register and Blake was there, not even a word would be spoken. The transaction would go through automatically, everybody already knowing what they were going to get and how much they were going to pay for it. But when I saw that my own brother had fallen victim to whatever
Oh,
this was,
God.
I knew I had to do something. It was even hard for me to resist the urge to be eating blizzards all the time. One day, the boss had to leave for a couple hours to fetch some supplies from the supermarket 2 towns over. When he was gone, I told Blake I was taking my lunch break and slipped into the back of the store. The first place I went looking was the freezer, because the boss had told me to never go inside or I might get trapped. I'd been in there before he arrived, and I knew that was a BS excuse. Inside, there were no buns or patties or vegetables, just cream,
blizzards.
ice, and flavoring, as though he knew he wouldn't be selling anything but blizzards. But there was an extra chest freezer in there that I didn't recognize.
Wait, did he
I
kill
knew that
our
was where the
boss?
secret was hidden. But when I opened it up, I almost immediately yacked. It
No,
wasn't any
it
illicit
was the boss,
substance.
wasn't it?
That would have been preferable. Stuffed inside the chest were 3 human bodies, mangled and broken and dismembered. There were pieces missing from each of them, hands and feet, and there were holes in their heads where their brains had been leached out. My old boss never made it to Florida. Neither had his wife and neither had his kid. The new guy had double-crossed them all and taken his money back, then used their remains to cut the blizzards and make cannibals out of my entire hometown. I ran out the back door so Blake wouldn't see me. Then I got in my truck and raced home. I didn't feel safe there, though. I was so racked
Oh
with
my
fear that the
God.
new boss would find me and kill me and make me a strawberry blizzard like he promised. And I was worried for my family. I wrote a note and left it on the dining room table, telling them to never go near the DQ and to watch their backs until the owner and son were in jail. I then called the police and left an anonymous tip. And once that was done, I packed up my things and skipped town.
Yeah.
I had nowhere to go, but I hoped one of my friends in college would let me crash in their dorm until justice was served. But even after that's all said and done, I don't think I can ever go back there.
No, you can't. No. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ooh, wait a minute. Ooh.
I love sweets. So, when I got a part-time job at Dairy Queen, I felt like I was one lucky girl.
Is Dairy Girl?
As
Wait
one
a
of the-
minute. Can I just say that is Dairy Queen really that good? I mean, I don't go there that much, but is it really that good? I might need to go apply there.
Crew members,
seems
I was
like
in
some
charge of
crazy
food
stuff
production and
happens at Dairy
sanitation.
Queen.
However, every now and then, I would also take on the role of cashier. I had no qualms about my colleagues. We all got along pretty well. While I was still learning the ropes, they were there to entertain my queries and lend a hand whenever I wasn't certain about what I was doing.
That's
There were
good.
usually 8 of us, and we were a good team.
Having good
However,
coworkers
just when
will
I thought
always
it was a
make the
piece of
job
heaven on
easier.
earth, every time I left for work, I would arrive at Dairy Queen, greeting a corpulent lady whose makeup was always too thick, like Ursula from the classic Disney film The Little Mermaid. The hairnet
Damn.
kept her curls in place, and her uniform was neatly pressed, emphasizing her strict discipline towards sanitation and order. This was our manager, and
Oh,
according
God,
to the
no.
employee, she was often called Madame. One day, the
Madame.
manager could no longer contain her anger, that she demanded a skinny female crew member who was often sick and late to work to do 100 sit-ups in the kitchen area. Every time she attempted to take a break, the manager would scowl and kick her somewhere near the ribcage. I was so stunned that I forgot to look away when I should have. So, when the manager caught me looking at her, she glared at me with gritted teeth and said,
What the hell are you looking at, huh?
my body trembled as I went
Oh
back
my
to work.
God.
I was in front of the ice cream station when I was making the blizzards when I heard the kicking stopped. I was sweating profusely now as I saw this terrifying person approaching me from my peripheral vision. Then, not a moment too soon,
looks like
she
your
grabbed
ears-
my hair, intending to push my head towards the blizzard mixer. So
Oh.
I instinctively fought against her sinister force with my hands gripping the mounted wall cabinets hanging
What
above
the
the commercial
hell?
mixer.
It seems you have so much spare time in your hands that you can't help but mind other people's business.
She whispered menacingly into my ears.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to.
You see, Miss Davis, I have a reputation to uphold. What would happen to me if you screwed up all the ice cream, huh?
She said, as she pushed my head a bit further right onto the machine, my hand pressing against the dispense button and ice cream pouring out everywhere from the floor to the inside of my shoes. Concerned that the floor would be a safety hazard, I desperately said,
Madame, please stop!
Then, just when my colleague was about to tap her on the shoulder, she released her grip, allowing me to step back for a moment. Then, she yanked me by the collar and whispered,
If you tell your family about this, it's not only your job that's at stake here. I have other ways to mess up that pretty little face of yours. Get back to work, you useless pile of trash!
she exclaimed, glowering at all the employees before returning to the office and slamming the door behind her.
Oh my
I was
God.
consoled by all my coworkers, and one of them, who was also a teenager like me, approached me and said,
After what I've seen, I think we better resign. There are better work environments out there anyway. I'd even go as far as to report her.
I agreed with
And
her,
I
of
thought
course.
Kroger
After
was
all,
bad.
the manager was nuts. So, I decided to work until the end of this week after acquiring the last of my hard-earned salary. All I had to do during this time was avoid getting on the manager's bad side. The following day, I was dipping some french fries in oil when the manager approached me. With a tyrannical look, she said,
What do you think you're doing? You're supposed to be on break. Go on, leave your post!
Still shaken
Leave
from our
your
last
post.
conversation, I
This
politely
isn't the
declined
army,
her
lady.
command, saying,
Thanks for your concern, but I already had my break, and I need to complete my remaining tasks before my shift ends.
She continued to glare at me, which
Bro,
I
this
thought
is
was
so
perplexing
awful.
since I precluded the use of any offensive words or expressions. Then she said,
Insubordination! Are you saying that I'm wrong?
"What?" That was entirely irrelevant to what I said. I was infuriated, and I wanted to give her a piece of my mind. But upon recalling her threat, I recoiled and decided not to speak in case responding to her in any way gave her the wrong impression.
I just asked you a question, you lowlife. Now you're giving me the silent treatment? You must think you're better than me, don't you?
She accused me as she started shoving waffle cones and ice cream sandwiches. My natural response was to raise my arms and protect my head. Her rage made her so powerful that we slipped and fell to the floor amidst the altercation.
Kick her in the
My way
face!
out of there, but she had a firm grip on my left foot. One of my colleagues, the teenager who told me to leave the job, intervened and smashed an entire ice cream cake into the manager's head. Once distracted, she managed to pull her away from me, giving me ample time to get to my feet and call my mother.
No,
asking her
call
from the Dairy Queen.
911.
However, the manager was still too strong. She immediately got up and strode to the office where she locked herself in. Then, when my mother finally arrived, my friend and I told her everything that had happened.
Why didn't you call
Enraged,
911?
My mother demanded to speak to the manager. Hence, with a clenched fist, she hollered,
Come out! What did my daughter ever do to you to deserve this treatment? Face me, you coward!
The manager exited the office and headed straight for the kitchen, ignoring my mother's query and complaint.
She about to grab a
Disgraced,
knife.
my mother messed up the counter, scattering the straws and utensils on the floor. She pulled my friend and me away.
You're not getting paid to be abused.
She said fiercely. Then, moments later, the manager came back with a mixing bowl as though she were ready to
No.
explain herself.
No.
But to our surprise,
That's hot
she
water.
threw hot cooking oil at us, hitting my arm in the process and giving me mild burns. Our level of toleration had its limits. Hence, all three of us jumped
Kick her!
at her, beating her to a pulp. We scratched her, slapped her, and punched her incessantly, tearing up her clothes. When the police finally arrived, three of us were charged with simple battery, while the manager was arrested for aggravated battery and assault.
Yes. Is that what that is? Oh. Okay. So the first two, they were okay. That last one, it went from damn to Jesus Christ. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Friday Frights. I enjoyed it, and I hope y'all did too. How about you hit that like button for me? And if you did indeed love it, how about you go down to Dairy Queen? How about you look cashier in the face, you ask for 3 triple blizzards, 50 Oreo cakes, and then you go over to them and you slither over to that subscribe button for me, like you should have already done. Now, I got nothing else for this video. I think we got all the content we need for the day. I hope you had a good day as well. V1per Out.